What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Nerdlocker podcast. I'm Brandon.
I'm Patrick.
I'm Jimmy.
And we're going to talk about some stuff. I know the one thing on our minds right now is we have all finished The Punisher, and we want to talk about it. And you know what? We finished it last week before we ate all this goddamn turkey. So I thought I was going to sit at home and binge that, but I finished it by the Sunday morning that it came out.
Jeez.
Yeah, I got no life.
Yeah, that's apparent.
You guys finish it?
Yeah, I totally finished it. I binge watched, and I didn't get through it all in like one night or anything like that, but like I normally do. But I actually got through it fairly quickly. So I don't know, man. It was interesting. Like for me, Punisher's always been one of those iconic characters for me as a kid growing up. A lot of people used to think, why do you like that psychopath, Frank Castle? And they kind of looked at me a little weird because, Frank and Batman were my two favorite comics when I was a kid. I would say after my G.I. Joe phase and as I got older and became a teenager, that's when I started picking up Punisher comics. Originally because I was Jim Lee used to do War Journal, and Punisher War Journal used to come out in these big ass paper, almost like an actual newspaper. I don't know. I mean, I know Brandon doesn't remember it because he wasn't even born, but it used to come in these big, almost like your OC Weekly or Vegas Weekly type of, or LA Weekly type newspaper. And I used to pick them up because they were just odd looking, and I thought that was kind of cool. And then Jim Lee was also one of the artists. He was a cover artist, and I think he did some panels inside. But it was Mark Textria, who was the grittiest and grimiest of them all, out of all the Marvel artists that got me reading Punisher. So
that's awesome. I did not read Punisher, but I remember Tex from his Sabretooth.
His run.
Awesome.
So before he did Sabretooth, and how his claim to fame was kind of doing the Punisher comics. He did both Punisher and Punisher War Journal for a while. And he just brought like the grittiness and griminess of Frank, and he kind of let it. I started reading him because he seemed less cartoonish. Like when he first appeared in, I think it was like 1974 or something like that, when he was sent to kill Spider-Man or something.
Yeah,
it was kind of cartoony. He had the skull. He didn't know if he was a fucking pirate or if he was Frank Castle, the Punisher. So you kind of had to pick your poison when it came to Frank. But then once Textria and Jim Lee started getting involved, the War Journal started getting involved, it was kind of evident for me.
I just always grew up with the Punisher being the Punisher, and it is fun. It is funny because he gets that rap. Like, for people that don't read comics, I feel like he gets that rap of like, I'm not in. Well, it's weird because you get it on both sides. You either get the people who read comic books and aren't interested because they think he's just this violent, mess of a person that it's just like shooting and killing and stabbing and murder and all this shit. And then you have the other side of the spectrum that are like, I fucking love the Punisher because he just fucking kills everyone and uses guns and like,
right.
So then there's that, then it goes back to the reverse side of like, well, that's why I don't like him, because look at like the reasons people like him. But there are plenty of stories out there that really give a voice and a purpose. And what I really like about the Punisher is he's that hero that you can read, well, anti-hero, that you can read, and you can read a story of his, and it's like, look at how well thought out he is and how planned everything is, and how much research he does and how tough he is. And then on the other hand, you can just be reading a book and it's like, oh shit, the Punisher showed up. Like, how the fuck did he know to be here? And know that like shit's going to happen. So I like both aspects of that as someone who has read the books.
Yeah. And see, for me with the Punisher, another thing was like when I grew up. I grew up in Los Angeles during the '80s, right? So it was a really violent time in Los Angeles, and as a kid growing up in, I guess the hood, I don't know. I mean, when you grow up in bad neighborhoods, you never think it's that bad. But for me, the bad guys always won where I lived. And then having somebody like Batman or having somebody like Frank where the bad guys don't win was dope. You know, it was like it was, and plus he was based in somewhat in a reality, so um, he didn't have special powers. I wasn't into um, X-Men at the time, but Punisher and Batman both were just like real guys. You know, they just trained super hard and then ended up, you know, just smashing people's face in, and they won. So that was cool to me. I was like, okay, this regular guy can actually go in and you know do some damage. You know, so that's another aspect of Punisher that I really dug. You know?
I would say, Patrick, you and I are the same age. Don't get me wrong, audience. Patrick's older, but we have similar experiences and I never gravitated to the Punisher. I don't know why. So my experience with the Punisher is like the Spider-Man cartoon in the '90s when he, guest appeared and all that to kill him, obviously, or when the two movies that came out from Fox, which were whatever what they were at the time. And I know Patrick is dying to talk about the Dolph Lundgren one later.
Yeah.
But that was my only experience for Frank Castle. And I'm like, okay. And then, I'm sorry, when they rebooted him a couple years ago and he ended up in Miami, I'm like, okay, this started pretty cool. Not bad. But watching this Netflix series, actually, let's go back to starting to Daredevil season 2. I was floored at the way they depicted him. It was awesome. Like, I can't imagine anybody but John Bernthal being Frank Castle.
Oh, like, absolutely.
So amazing at it. And then with this series, I'm like, okay, well, he was great as a guest star, but really, can he hold down his own storyline? Because I know just from talking to you, Patrick, but also, the mythos of what Frank Castle is can they do it? Because 3 movies so far, they haven't been able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Fabulous story. They really made him, as an example, one of my favorite movies is The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing, with Kurt Russell being this hero that does not want to do it, but nobody else is there, so he's got to do it. And that is exactly what Frank Castle is in this. Is he just wants to be on that construction site where he opens up and he wants to hit that wall, and that's all he wants to do. He doesn't want to do anything else.
Oh yeah, spoiler alerts, by the way, guys, in case you're listening and you're trying to figure out.
We're gonna really talk about this show. So if you didn't watch it yet, maybe don't listen. Which is cool because I told a bunch of people like, "Oh hey, you should subscribe if you haven't." So that'll be cool. They're like, "Oh man, your podcast is so terrible. Thanks for ruining the Punisher." So sorry, but stop listening. Go watch it and then listen. But anyways, before we get off topic, I rewatched the Dolph Lundgren, Thomas Jane, and Ray Stevenson Punisher movies before this, just to get a feel, because I remember when the Thomas Jane movie came out, I was like, well, this isn't bad. But then in retrospect, you're like, this isn't great. The Ray Stevenson, I didn't think it was funny because, everyone's like, oh, well, the Thomas Jane one, it's too, it's not violent enough. And then the Ray Stevenson one, everyone's like, this is just a violent piece of garbage. And then the Dolph Lundgren one, everyone goes, Dolph Lundgren was in a Punisher movie. I will say though, and this is weird because just as you 100% see Dolph Lundgren's balls at the end of that movie, and it was really weird. And the ending of the Dolph Lundgren movie is so fucking weird because he kills the guy. And his son is sitting there crying that his dad just got murdered in front of him. And Dolph Lundgren's like, hey, you're a good kid. And you're going to grow up to be a good man. And if you don't,
after you murder
I'll find you. And then just walks away to watch this kid watch his dad just die in a pool of blood. And then for some reason, Frank Castle's meditating naked in the sewers in front of a fire. And his balls are just hanging out, and then the movie ends. And I was like, this is the worst than I remember. Like, fuck, this is terrible.
Like Lou Gossip Jr. I remember that.
Yeah, that was a bad movie. But anyways,
Before the Netflix series, to me, the best representation was there was a Thomas Jane. I don't know why they didn't have the movie like
oh,
this.
Dirty Laundry.
Dirty
Yes,
Laundry. Yep.
that was the
Yes.
best. That was it, and it was what 7 minutes? I don't remember.
7 minutes.
And that was
Yeah,
the best.
Dirty Laundry was the perfect, I would say, honestly, the perfect depiction of the Punisher outside of the complex Punisher we have in the Netflix. But yeah, Dirty Laundry. If you guys haven't seen it, YouTube it. It's out there. It's God, who else is in it? It's shit, Hellboy. Fuck, what's his name? The actor that plays Hellboy.
No, fucking. Oh, because you said that, I don't remember now. I love him. No, fucking. Oh my God, what is wrong with me?
Am I saying Ron Perlman again?
Yeah. Oh, you're
Ron
Ron Perlman.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't hear you. Ron Perlman.
Yeah, I
No,
can hear you.
Brandon said no.
My bad. We're all good.
Brandon doesn't know name.
Yeah, Ron Perlman plays like some kind of vet that says, "I'll go out there and kick his ass myself if I wasn't in this wheelchair."
Yeah.
And the best part was like Thomas Jane taking a bottle of Jack and just fucking people up with it. It was awesome. That was like a best Jack Daniels commercial ever.
Oh yeah,
So good.
well, that was filmed after he was dropped off of the Punisher, and he was really campaigning to be the Punisher again, and so they filmed that to kind of like, look, I'm ready to do it, but
honestly, I think Thomas Jane really did fit the look
100%.
of Frank Castle. Like he fit the look of Frank Castle 100%. Like if somebody was to draw, if you look at pictures of Frank Castle, it's basically Thomas Jane.
I feel bad because I think that movie just came out at a time, especially with Fox, where they didn't know what comic book movies were. The Blade was pretty good, but they just didn't know if they could go that violent with a comic book movie, especially as a movie. And they're still trying to get their audience. So can they really go hard R? Don't know yet. So I agree with you. I don't think it was Thomas Jane at all. I think it was more the studio didn't know what to do.
Well, the Thomas Jane Punisher had a lot of references and a lot of great people and characters. Like, I mean, you had the Russian, which was he's one of my favorite Punisher villains. I mean, he's just a dumb robot of a guy that just, keeps coming at you over and over and over and over again. So I thought that was cool. When I saw him in his little striped shirt, which is the classic Russian garb for him, I was like, oh my God, I knew exactly who that was. And I was like fanboying the fuck out in the movie theater watching it. The Ray Stevens flick was decent until it got campy. Once it started getting campy with the Jigsaw and what was his buddy, his brother or whatever, that I was like, you know what, you just lost me there. So that one didn't. But let's dive into the actual Netflix series. So from you guys, you guys don't read Punisher, so I'm interested to see what you thought and how you think about it. And
I haven't read a lot of backstory Punisher, but I've stayed pretty up on Punisher in the last. I mean, I've been reading steadily for like 15 years now.
Okay.
So I mean, I've read here and there. I don't always pick up every series. I was reading the one that was currently going on with Steve Dillon right as he passed away, with Becky Cloonan writing. I just picked up the new Legacy one, which is interesting. I guess we can talk about it. And I did read Rick Remender's whole run with Frankencastle and all that kind of shit.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed that. But I definitely am a Punisher fan, but not he's not my favorite, but I enjoy him. I thought the show was great because, like we were talking about, the Thomas Jane movie people thought was too talkative and not enough action, and the Stevenson one was too much gore and no story. I feel like this balanced it perfectly, and that's the beauty of doing it in a TV show, is you have 13 hours to do it rather than 3. So I really like that, and I really I thought the fight scenes were cool. I thought that I loved how realistic they were, and not in the sense of the gore, but in the sense of counting the bullets in the gun, firing the gun, even the way he was holding the gun. It was all
Right.
realistically done, which he talks about in several interviews, that it was, he trained hard for this, and they, with the vet, the veteran angle with it, they wanted to make sure they were doing this correctly. They weren't just saying like, look at me, I'm a veteran, and look at, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was, they did the research, and you could tell.
Right.
Something I mentioned to you guys when, we were all kind of like just texting each other, watching it. I really liked that although you had the Punisher story, there was the side story of the veterans and the PTSD and the things they go through coming back. And I think that's what sets this apart from, Daredevil's great, but I think Daredevil is the comic book show from Netflix. And I almost think that's why Iron Fist kind of got lost with people, is because with Jessica Jones, you had the female victim and, being abused and being taken advantage of, and what it's like to be a strong person overcoming that. With Luke Cage, you had the Black Lives Matter issues and the the Trayvon Martin protest with the hood and all that. Like, there were other things that drove that show outside of the main story.
Yep.
And I feel that's where Iron Fist didn't have anything. And this, once again, you make it more realistic by bringing in the vet angle and the PTSD angle. And I really enjoyed that, because I feel that there was, and I mean, obviously, Patrick, you would be able to speak better on this than I can, but I feel like it brought a reality that I didn't. I mean, I'm not saying it's exactly the same and exactly perfect, but it brought a reality to someone like me who's never served or done anything like that, to see a side of what these people go through.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, was that pretty realistic? Like, from your...
Yeah, from my perspective, yeah, that was one of the things I did enjoy most about the series as a whole, right? Was that it wasn't just, Frank killing shit. I was talking to another couple of my Marine Corps buddies about the series, and they all know I'm huge, like, comic book fucking freak, and like, they know I have a Punisher skull tattooed on my back. They know that I'm like a big time Punisher fan, and they asked me, how'd you feel about it? This, and they would start talking about the PTSD and talking to veterans and talking about how it was and how it is when you get out. For me, as somebody who's never really been in any kind of intense combat situations, I can only speak to a certain extent. But as you guys knew, when I had my shop, I would hire vets that were in combat. Like, one of my mechanics was an actual special ops medic who had some serious PTSD issues. So when he was having these breakdowns and these issues, sitting down and talking to him and relating to him and showing him that the world isn't as fucked up as he thinks it is, and he can at ease, he can relax a little bit, was an important aspect of it all. And that's kind of what we did, what they did in the actual story. So that was dope, because that's a real issue, I did as me being a Marine as well, Frank Castle talking shit to a bunch of Army guys was kind of cool. I'm not going to fucking lie, because there was one scene where he was on the phone with the kid with the massive PTSD after he stabbed old boy, and he's got Curtis wired up to the claymores, which, by the way, he had the claymores facing the wrong way on Curtis.
Yeah, well, I think that was, I thought about that too, but I think that was
to blast whoever was trying to take it off.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. But when he was talking to Curtis about, he's a coward and, this and that, and he calls him an Army piece of shit. And I was like, fuck yeah. And then I was like, oh, I need to calm down. I forgot I'm at home. So there was like those aspects. But one of the things I was talking to my Marine Corps friends the most about was that Frank sticks to a code. And you
Yeah.
hear it reiterated over and over again. See, the Marine Corps, one of the codes of the Marine Corps is honor, courage, and commitment, right? It's the three pillars of the Marine Corps that is drilled into your head from boot camp all the way to till you get out. And Frank has each one of those pillars, and they're represented in different ways. You know, he talks about having no honor when you use bombs or when you're being a coward and stuff like that. He's committed to his cause. He's committed to helping his friends. You know, and he shows immense courage throughout the whole entire series, especially towards the end, where he sacrifices his life knowing that he could possibly die just to make sure Micro gets his family free and clear.
Yeah.
It's and if you ever go back and watch them, just think about honor, courage, and commitment, and just see there's all three pillars are always there with him. So I mean, hats off to the production team on really sticking to the Marine Corps values, you know, and really kind of showcasing that, you know, with Frank. Now, when you get to Billy the Butte, you know, when you get to Billy, or AKA Jigsaw, it's not so much. Jigsaw is just a slimy fuck that you pretty much hate from the time he steps on screen. You know, even though, and you guys probably will notice this, that his hair was like super long. Special forces can get away with that shit. Normal Marines can't. So
Okay,
just
it's
FYI.
funny. I said that to my buddy. I was watching it with my buddy Curtis, and I was like, "Well, that's like the only thing I couldn't." That was like, so far, this is the only thing I think that isn't realistic is his fucking haircut. And Curtis was like,
Yeah,
"Nah, dude, special forces can do whatever the fuck they want." And I was like, "Oh,
pretty
well
much.
then, okay then."
Yeah, like
Um,
when I did SOTG school, SOTG is Special Ops Training Group. When I did SOTG, all the instructors had long hair. Like all the instructors, this is pre, you know, war, Afghanistan, and things like that, where you know you grow a big crusty beard and you know long hair and all that other stuff. I mean, it was really tripping me out trying to figure out like why Staff Sergeant Bishop had like long hair, and I was like, dude, that's not regulations, you know. But that was just me.
that was
I think.
well, it was funny too. Oh, sorry, you're saying, Jim?
No, I was just going to say, I think as you're detailing it, Patrick and Brandon, you alluded to it. A majority of the Netflix audience is not served in the military. And I'm not talking about Punisher audience, I'm talking about Netflix audience.
Yeah,
Oh
So
yeah,
we have no idea what this world's like other than fiction.
right.
And I was
yeah.
really impressed. And I give this to the actor who played Curtis. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Jason R. Moore, as I look it up. He really brought us into that world as he was having his meetings and his groups. And then the way he would go, honestly, yes, at first with Billy, but also with Frank, making sure they were okay, checking in on them, just talking, having conversations. And I know he was the one that served in the military as well, but he's the one that brought us as a general audience into this world and helped us understand that these things exist. And then the relationship and brotherhood that exists after actual serving. I mean, that really was huge in this because I think that's kind of what the other movies missed is sort of that heart and soul. They just were going the guns and the blowing shit up part. This one really really got to the brotherhood and the heart and the soul of what it is to serve and be a Marine and allowed us outside of that world to experience it. And it was really cool to see that.
I can't remember it like to quote it, but the first time you see Curtis and that story he tells, like I thought they did a good job of really setting up what kind of people, giving you a good read on the people. Like there were a few times, like at the beginning when you first see David Lieberman, you kind of don't know how to feel about him. You're like, do I like this guy? Do I not like this guy? And then when they show the flashback and show why he's in the position he is, you're like, oh fuck, I really like this guy. Like he was doing the right thing and he knew what would happen and he did it anyways because it was the right thing to do. Curtis, like, granted he's teaching the class, but right off the bat you hear that story and it's like, okay, like this is a guy with a head on his shoulders, and he even some of the conversations they had in the group meetings just about like the way he viewed, doing this and doing that and the way people come back, I think was really cool. Like I thought that was really well done and really well thought out. The one when like I said, I watched most of this one with one of my friends, and when Billy Russo gets introduced, I mean, as soon as they say his name, I'm like, oh, that's Jigsaw, and he's like, I don't know how I feel about this guy, and I'm like, yeah, me neither. Like, I didn't want to spoil it for him.
Yeah, I had to do the same thing.
But I was looking forward to it. That was the thing about the show is I thought there were really good fight scenes. There were some really good fun gunfights, like out in the forest.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of the other
that was
shootouts.
awesome.
Oh, the forest was fucking legit. Because
Yeah.
I like too that it's like everyone he meets from his special forces team, like they know what the fuck they're doing. It wasn't like oh, there's these guys with guns. Like that's why he's always telling Lieberman to be like, dude, chill back. Like you don't need to like you're gonna fuck everything up if you get up. Like just stay there.
That's one of my favorite shots is in the opening scene when he's taking down I guess the drug cartel.
Yeah.
And he's a sniper and he's looking through and you see the guy, the girl's going down on the guy, and you hear the gunshot and nothing happens. You're like, did he miss? What the hell?
Yeah, and then
you don't know how far he is away until they show that shot, and then boom, he gets nailed, and you're like, holy shit, this is all.
Oh, that was a perfect introduction. Just like
that's how you do it.
But there were several moments, like it was like even when he took the sniper shot at Rollins and the glass stops it, and even the scene with Rollins when he fucking kills Rollins, it's brutal as shit. But I was sitting there and I'm like, man, I'm waiting. This is good. This is action, but like I'm waiting to see like the fight, and then when they storm the compound.
Oh yeah.
Oh fuck! I was like, this is perfect. This is so perfect. Even his scene when he takes the base overseas, it's just like holy shit. Like
that one, that scene right there was reminiscent of Punisher Born, which was a title that I think it's on a graphic novel now, but it's Punisher Born. It has some tight similarities between the two, because one of the things like as a kid I was always wondering like, well, why is Frank? Like what clicked in his head that changed him into this killing machine? Yeah. And Punisher Born is a good explanation to it. It is a good story behind it and how and why Frank is that way. And that scene in particular was very close to, some of the panels in that, and you actually see what triggers Frank, like how he gets thrown into the shit, and he's basically has to fight his way out, in order to get this handled and get his men home. And then when he comes back home, that stuff never leaves you. And that's one of the things that I think Frank's always had to deal with. This series reinvents, Frank's origin story, which it's been reinvented a number of times, over the years, because he originally was a Vietnam vet, and then he moved into like, I think the Thomas Jane movie had him like as a DEA agent.
Yeah, he was a cop. He wasn't a cop. DEA agent, but either way, he wasn't a war vet. Like,
no. And this one did a really good job, because most of the time I have beef with anytime they try to change the Punisher's, origin story, but this one did an absolutely masterful job of like changing that and showcasing that. So, again, this goes back to them doing their research, them talking to the fans, really being involved with the community as a whole and saying, okay, we're not going to fuck this up. Plus adding that social issue was like, boom, you're done. You're good.
Yeah. The other thing I really enjoyed about this was just the different aspects you saw, because I even when they started with a flashback, or when they would show the first flashback, I got like excited that I got to see normal dad Frank Castle. Like I was just like, fuck yeah, we get to see him as a father. Like because you forget about it. That's the thing about the Punisher is you don't often see loving husband, loving father, Frank Castle, and you see him after he comes back. Like that scene where he takes the compound. He did that, and then he came home to his wife and kids.
Right.
And I thought that was cool too, because there he is being, dad of the year, but then his son, what does his son say? He said,
Kill a bunch of Hajis or something like
yeah,
that.
and he like immediately straightens him out. Like,
Yeah.
we don't fucking talk like that. Like,
Yeah.
this isn't what we
Yeah.
do. And then you see this side of, now that he's gotten revenge, he still has all this anger and all this shit inside of him, that he gets a construction job to literally just beat shit with a hammer, because it's
Right.
the only way he can like function. He
Right.
has to do that for 10 hours a day or 12 hours a day. Like,
And that's a real thing right there. That thing, even non-combat Marines, even Marines like myself as a grunt. I remember there was a time where when I got out, I remember my brother woke me up, and I was sleeping in my bed. My brother wakes me up and jars me awake, and I took a swing at him, right? Because that was my first instinct. That was my first instinct, was like, who the fuck is this? And whoever it is about it, he's going to be in a world of hurt. And I didn't realize it was my brother until like I grabbed him and I was like, oh shit, my bad, So there's, and I was talking to some of my other Marine Corps friends, was that, when you get out, especially, if you've been in combat, you're wound so tight as a grunt, that we're used to having an outlet. We're used to having some way to release that pressure, that anxiety, that anger out. Either it is by shooting something, blowing something up, or, getting drunk and getting in a fucking brawl, in my case. So for a long time, you don't have that. And when you don't have that, you have to find something to exert that I don't know, that energy, I should say. For Frank, it was like beating the shit out of a wall. For me, I drove race cars and got in a shitload of trouble. For some of my other veteran friends who are in combat, that period is actually extended even longer. For me, it was about a year. I would say, honestly, it took me about a year to reallocate to being a civilian, right? A year to maybe 2 years reallocation, to desensitize myself, to realize that, these are the things that are acceptable in this society, and these are the things that are not. Whereas, I have friends who have done, 2 or 3 tours, and, if they don't come back to the world and do like ride a desk or something like that, they end up getting in a shit ton of trouble. They either I have one of my buddies who had to fight alcoholism, and had to fight massive depression, where the point where I've had to talk him off, putting a bullet in his head. You know what I'm saying? So there's things like that happen. And it was great that it actually showcased that, because I'm hoping what will happen is, like, a lot of these people who don't have who have never served, or think PTSD is not a big thing, or whatever the case may be, they get a glimpse into, well, maybe there might be something to this. Maybe there might be, and the fact that they push that across the board, man, I was blown away. Like some of my non-combat friends or service member friends were like, it was kind of, touchy feely. Not really. It was legit.
That was an eye opener when what's his name, Lewis, built the like foxhole in the backyard, and you're like, whoa! Like, I understand, almost accidentally shooting your dad,
right,
because the way he came in and walked in and all that. But then to take it a step further, you are awake. You are making conscious decisions, and your decision is to dig a hole in the backyard because
you feel more comfortable,
assimilate back into life.
Yeah, man, that was
wow. That was really impressive the way they did that.
Yeah, and then another thing was, like, you see Frank as a complex character now. You don't see Frank. I think this will change. I give you, I bet you $100 that the narrative in the books is going to change a little bit more, because of this, because we'll start seeing Frank as an actual person, and the stories, the character complexity will start to be bumped up a notch with Frank.
Well, that's what's nice, and Patrick, I think you'll remember this. Is growing up, it was always a crutch to be like, "Oh, it's a Vietnam vet,"
Yeah.
and that meant something, so you didn't have to explain. It's like, "Oh, okay, I guess so. Cool. I don't know what that is, but awesome." Whereas now,
You just know he went and saw war. It wasn't
Mm.
like
yeah,
Yeah, that's yeah, and that sucks. It's one of the things that um, really sucks about the mentality of people who are out there who've never been in any kind of combat or been into that kind of stressful environment. That they just think, and I remember, and I was guilty of it too. When I was a kid, my uncle was in the Marine Corps. He was a Vietnam vet. Did two tours in Vietnam.
wow.
Came back, signed up for a second because he couldn't. He assimilation into the world wasn't his thing. Um,
Well,
and
they didn't know about it back then. They
yeah,
didn't try.
they didn't
I
know
mean,
about it. No,
society didn't try to bring them back in.
right. So you know, I was guilty of it too because that was one of the things we weren't supposed to talk about. You know, I remember him crying in platoon, like just freaking tears. Mind you, my uncle is 6'6", 300 pounds. He is not a small man, and he would choke slam the devil if he could. You know, and he was my idol one of my idols when I was growing up. So obviously, when I saw him do that, I was like, wow, what's that all about? It was always just hush hush. Now that there's a little bit more social acceptance, it's great, and I think the show actually brings it across the finish line as far as like non-combat or non service members, taking a look at it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Jim, for like you as someone who hasn't really read the Punisher books, like that, you thought this was still like would this make you want to read older stuff or?
Yeah, most definitely. Like we were talking about going back and forth. You were asking Patrick, what are these storylines? What's it based on?
Yeah.
So I'd like to go back and read it. But two of the things that really stuck with me when it came directly with Frank, I absolutely love the development of Karen Page. I like what she has become, but I absolutely love that Frank Castle is this big brother protector to Karen. And when she was doing that interview, that radio interview with the senator, governor, whatever he was, and he is sitting there listening, and she is basically picking a fight with Lewis, and Frank's like, no, no, Karen, no. Oh my God. And he knows what she's doing, and he's going to have to basically risk his life to save her. And he knows that that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I just love that relationship. And then the other one we talked about was when Lewis has Curtis rigged up with the bomb and all that after that was such a brutal awful fight scene when he's beating him with his own leg. But
Yeah.
when
Which is
Frank's
fucked
on
up
the phone,
because like outside of that scene, that's the funniest fucking thing you can think of. But in that scene, I was like, this is the fucking
yeah, when you see
heaviest
it in
thing I've
reality,
ever
it's like,
seen.
oh, that's not funny. But when you say it,
No, not at all. It's fucking terrifying.
But when Frank's on the phone with Lewis and Curtis is rigged up and he's telling the story of how Curtis lost his leg. And you're like, oh my God, Frank, you were breaking my heart.
Right.
Not only did you lose like your family and all this shit, you feel responsible for one of your best friends and why he has no leg.
Yeah.
And it was like heartbreaking all over again.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think that adds to what Patrick was saying. Just like you really add so many layers to him. It's not just like this, like vengeful, I have to kill every bad guy that exists. It adds these different layers to it. The one thing I thought was interesting, I don't know. I feel like everything they addressed in Daredevil wasn't addressed in this show, like the bullet in the head, putting him in this
Right.
constant mood of anxiety and pain and
Right.
anger. So, like, was that just like washed away, or do you think that still played into all of this?
I think part of it still plays into it.
Like the dreams he has and all that kind of shit.
Yeah, because Karen Page's character is the tie into that, right? So
Yeah.
Karen's genuinely concerned about Frank because of all the stuff she learns about Frank during the case, and that's what one put her over the edge with liking Frank and not just hating Frank. You know what I'm saying? And that relationship and how that relationship developed was kind of interesting as well. You know, but I do agree that they should have, even though they did kind of hint to it. If you look on the skull on the his skull pattern, when he gets shot in the chest, he gets shot where he supposedly got shot before, as well as like some of the other places he was supposed to get shot at in the head. If you look at the skull pattern, he gets dotted both times where the X-ray shows up in the Daredevil.
Oh, no
series.
shit. Okay.
Yeah. So I still think that does play to it, but then again, you know, I think it was more focus on the PTSD aspect of it and dealing with that as a whole, not just saying it's not just Frank, it's other people too.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that was kind of their focus on it. Was like, let's walk away from that and go over here.
The first thing I thought about, like, in the show, to me, one of the most important scenes of the show, because I was telling Curtis this, because my buddy Curtis has always been, you know, a big military supporter. He's always liked the Punisher for that reason. He's always been a big fan of his. So, like, he has been waiting for this show for so long, and he loved it. But he doesn't really read the comic books. So when they do the Karen Page thing, and he like tells Mike, Micro, just like he's like, Karen is family. Nobody fucks with Karen. Like when he almost gets like unreasonable to him. You know, he's like, no, it's Karen. I'm going. Fuck you. I thought that was the most important scene because that sets up for so much shit down the line with him, because Bullseye kills Karen Page in the comic books.
Yeah.
And if you bring Bullseye into Daredevil and he kills Karen Page, you have an entire season right there of Punisher going after Bullseye, and I can't imagine like
the carnage
how good that can be. Like as soon as he did it, I was like, oh, holy shit. Like, oh my God, this is gonna be amazing. Like I literally, I was already like, season 2, bring on season 2. Like season 3, let's murder Karen. Like I love her as an actress. I think she's really great. I really like her. But all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I hope she dies. I hope she gets fucking murdered. Like I can't wait to see this, because you're gonna have a whole season of Frank just being like, where is he?
Well, I mean, that might be even the tie-in for crossing over between Daredevil and Punisher right there. You know, is like the two of them, you know, going after Kingpin or something like that, because Kingpin is supposed to be coming back in season 3 of Daredevil.
That's what I heard the rumor.
Yeah, I heard the rumor.
Defenders, where they left Matt Murdock.
Yeah. Did you notice the quick jab at Daredevil when he's got the gun guy from Daredevil, and he's like, man, he took all the guns. So he comes back, he's like, He's like, well, Matt took all the fucking guns I need. I was like, that's awesome. That was really cool.
Yeah, Turk.
Yeah. And I want to give a quick shout out too, because I was floored. C. Thomas Howell and Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio. I was like, oh man, dude, bringing back more of the 80s. I love this.
Man, Thomas Howell got fucked up though. It was like,
oh yeah, he did. That fight was good though.
Oh, that was the thing I liked too, is everyone, it was all realistic. Like he would be able to handle himself. Like,
right.
I mean, he ended up getting the shit kicked out of him, but realistically, it's like, okay, he knows what he's doing. It's not just like, oh, why is a cop so good at hand-to-hand combat? Like,
right.
Like he knew what he was doing. But yeah, I thought all of that was great. But yeah, it took me a minute. I was like, holy shit, that's C. Thomas Howell.
Yeah. And what I like, it just reminded me about Frank, is how many times did he not just do brute force, but he outwitted whoever. And a lot of times, I don't know what, maybe he's got to get a little bit smarter, but he would outwit it by, okay, you got me, haha, now you're going to beat the shit out of me. But then, after I'm your death, I'll get my vengeance.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a better way than almost dying, but I really liked how he really outwitted opponents a lot.
And I have to say, one of my favorite characters in the whole entire series was the Battle Van. The Battle Van, you got to understand. Like Punisher War Journal used to publish a series called Punisher Armory, right?
Yeah.
And it was a special book that just went through every single gadget and gun and
You are such a
thing.
nerd.
I know.
That's
With the van, but the van was always a quintessential part of Frank Castle. It was always a Ford Econoline van that was specially retrofitted for what he does,
Yeah,
and
he had it full of all of his
all
toys.
all his toys, guns, run flats, and all this other stuff. But when I saw the battle van actually show up, I was like, "Oh, that's the van! That's so awesome!" It's like the A-Team van, though. I mean, it's like a
Yeah.
big time.
For Punisher nerds, it's a big piece. It is a big piece of who Frank is.
Yeah.
Well, that was a great throw line too. All these cars here, and you're going to take that thing?
Yeah,
Always buy American.
always buy American.
Yeah. Well, that was cool too because like I thought it also plays into him being a Marine. It's like of course that's the attitude he's going to have. Like
right. I
why would
know. I mean, it is. I mean, I don't know. I definitely dug it. It has its ins and outs. I thought it did a great job of actually retelling the Frank Castle story as a whole, and I can't wait to see if we're going to see more because the way the season ended, it doesn't really feel like there's going to be more. I thought it ended on a pretty good note. With Frank sitting down with the rest of the vets and Curtis saying like, "Look, you're safe here. We keep each other's secrets." I will say though that for anybody listening and the guys that watch the movie, watch the series, the Stolen Valor guy, fuck, I hate those guys. I fucking can't stand those guys.
That was a cool thing they addressed too, like because that happens all the fucking time.
Oh yeah, all the time. All the time. I run into, those who say they served. I remember one time at Vegas.com at work one day, there was a guy sitting at the front desk, and he was a DHL delivery guy. And he was talking about how he was an Iraqi vet and this and that. And he was just trying to chop it up with the receptionist and, basically make him sound better. And I was like, oh, yeah? I was like, oh, what was your MOS? He's talking about like how he's a Marine and this and that. And he started stuttering and he didn't know what the hell he was talking about. And he could tell I knew what I was talking about. And I absolutely can't stand those guys. It's like, stay in your fucking lane, dude. If you didn't serve, don't try to play it off. And if you did, just be honest with yourself. Be honest with what you did,
Yeah.
And the fact that he got the fat dude that like left Lewis on like high and dry on the the courthouse steps was awesome. It was absolutely awesome. Maybe that's a PSA.
It was cool. Yeah, like it was cool because it was like, it was a weird scene because you were like, good, fuck him, like but then as soon as he kills him, you're like, oh, this is gonna start a really dark path for this kid. Like,
exactly.
I was like, oh shit, this is not gonna end well with him. Like, you're kind of on the fence. You felt bad for him,
right.
but it just went to that extreme. But when he killed that guy, you're like, yeah, fuck you, dude, piece of shit. Yeah, but all in all, I thought I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm really glad they took the route that they went.
Yeah, I totally do, and like I said before, I'm interested to see what Netflix does in the future. We have like season 3 of Daredevil coming out, and we got Kingpin coming back supposedly. Daredevil seems to be like the really big linchpin as far as it goes for this whole Netflix cinematic or Netflix universe, I guess. And hopefully we'll get a second season of Jessica Jones sometime soon.
I think they talked about that. I think it's happening.
Okay, cool.
They're not going to announce it.
Yeah, because like I've got tons of people asking me questions about what's going on with Jessica Jones and what's going on with Luke Cage and like these.
Filming. Oh, it's scheduled to be released 2018 sometime.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll get a whole new slew of stuff that ties them in, and maybe we'll see Frank, maybe we won't. But for right now, I think they did an awesome job, and they've kind of wrapped it up in a nice little bow where you're still rooting for him. He's got his pardon from the CIA, so he's kind of got some free range to move around and stuff like that. So let's see what
Well,
happens.
that's what I think we should end with. Is I was going to ask if you guys had any predictions for season 2 or like his future with all of this.
I kind of like what you guys were talking about earlier in that, he's copacetic. He's got his revenge. What could possibly bring him out of that stage of his life? And it's really a threat to Karen Page would do that.
Yeah.
So that would be an interesting way to go.
Yeah, I would say a threat to Karen Page would definitely do it, or a threat to, you know, David, or even the Nani, the agent, the Homeland Security agent. That could bring him back out of his shell. So this is my only critique of the actual series, was the fact that they didn't really stick to their original story of the drug lord thing, because that sets him on a path that is continuous.
Yeah.
I think we talked about it before, and I'll try to keep it short, but Frank's driving force behind the fact that he is the Punisher is the fact that he wasn't able to save his family, and he wasn't, despite all his training and all this darkness that's brewed inside him. The minute he lets his guard down, bad shit happens. So that's why he doesn't let his guard down anymore. But not having like the botched mobster hit, actually take his family out, kind of silos Frank's mission as a whole.
Yeah.
But that's how this whole series started, and I think that was part of the connection to Daredevil, was he was killing all those people, and then it was done. But then he found out that's not exactly what happened.
Right. Exactly.
Which was interesting, because it was like, fuck, dude, you spent all that time, and
yeah,
yep,
it wasn't. Yeah, but I mean, hey, a bunch of drug dealers are dead, so good on him.
Right. So, what about you, Brandon? What are your predictions?
I'm really hoping I'm right about the bullseye thing. I didn't really. It's funny because I didn't really think about it till you just said it, but his thing is quelled, and he kind of has this. Even at the end, he's like, I don't know what to do,
right.
And it just ends, and it's like, shit, he's not in that place. So I'm thinking Karen dying could definitely light that fire,
or Billy coming back, or Jigsaw coming back.
Which that last scene when he shoots him in the face, I was like, that can't be all we get. And then he just slamming that. Oh, when he drags it, I was like, oh! Well, it's funny. I wasn't uncomfortable. I was like, yes.
But you just know how
Jigsaw.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, you're getting Jigsaw big time. So.
Oh, it was fucking great. But I liked it. That was my thing with Jessica Jones. I love David Tennant so much, and I thought he was a good villain. I hate that he killed him. So I like that these end with not dead villains. Right. Jigsaw can return, and there's a lot of shit there. But you're right. You could see him, bleed over into
anybody.
Daredevil.
Yeah,
I don't know. So
it'll be interesting.
Well, that was you guys got anything else to add?
No.
Nope.
All right. Well, that's going to do it. That was our thoughts. Let us know what you guys think. Don't forget to like us and follow us and all that on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. This podcast, just hit that subscribe button. It's awesome. We'll be back soon. But until then, you guys have a nerdy week.
Peace.